I really know what it's like when you have eaten perfectly all week, you've resisted all the temptations, and then you get to the end of the week and there's not been a single movement on the scales. There's not even an ounce that's gone. And I get this question all the time. What am I doing wrong? The ladies that I work with, they say to me, what am I doing wrong? What do I need to change? Why am I not losing weight? And my first question to them is always, how's your sleep? How are you sleeping at night? And often the answer will come back terrible. And that in itself is a part of the whole problem that means they are struggling to manage their weight effectively after 40. Sleep doesn't get anywhere near enough attention when it comes to the whole weight loss kind of strategy and program, because sleep is so important. If you are waking at 3 o'clock in the morning, if you are tossing and turning, if you're struggling to go to sleep, all of these are signs that your body is out of alignment. But most importantly, when you sleep deeply, your insulin resets. So you start the next day with balanced insulin. If you're not sleeping well, then you start the next day with a higher elevated level of insulin, which means you're already in a fat storing mode, and you're probably struggling with hunger before you've even woken up. And when we're in that fat storing mode, when we're struggling with hunger, it's a stress on the body and it pushes our cortisol levels up. And when cortisol is high, insulin is high, the two hormones together act as blockers to stop us burning fat for fuel. And also, if insulin is high, we release more ghrelin, which is the hormone that tells us we are hungry. So we've got this kind of perfect storm going on with our hormones. That means if we are not sleeping very well, that's just going to contribute further to the fact that we're probably eating more than we realize. Our insulin is all over the place and cortisol is all over the place, and they're really high. They're blocking burning fat for fuel, and actually they're acting as fat storing hormones, not fat burning hormones. So sleep is absolutely critical to help you manage what your insulin is doing, but also it helps to ensure that the cells are less sensitive to insulin. Because as we go through menopause and estrogen drops, we become less sensitive to insulin, which means we have to produce more insulin to deal with the amount of food or the same meal that we might have eaten in our 30s. We have to produce more insulin to deal with it. And when insulin is high, we become this fat storing, it becomes a fat storing hormone. So we want to try and keep insulin under control. And it resets through the course of the night. And if we aren't having a good night's sleep, we become less sensitive to it. We start producing more insulin. So we want to keep insulin under control. So how can we do that? Well, the first thing to think about is not eating too late into the evening. If you're eating late into the evening, you want at least 3 hours before you go to bed, because if you've got 3 hours, it will allow insulin to come down. And that means that by the time you go to bed, you'll go into a much better sleep. The right hormones for better sleep get released if insulin is low. The second thing you want to think about is making sure your evening meal is really nicely balanced with plenty of protein and plenty of fiber. Those two things together will help to slow the release of glucose down, steady your blood sugar levels, and ensure that your insulin is where it needs to be, so that you're not releasing ghrelin to tell you you're hungry. You're actually releasing leptin, which allows you to burn fat for fuel. And then you become a much more efficient fat burner through the night as well. So you want to get your evening meal really nicely balanced with plenty of protein, plenty of colors, and not too much processed carbohydrate like pasta and bread and all that kind of thing. And then the last thing you want to be thinking about is creating a proper wind down before you go to bed, which means coming off your phone no later than 8 o'clock. The blue light, it hits the back of your eyes, tells you it's daytime, and your cortisol level rises if you're on your phone late into the evening. You want to start reducing the lighting, because then as you reduce the lighting, that tells your eyes that we're heading into bedtime. And you want to just make sure that the kitchen is closed at 7 o'clock, so that you're not heading into the kitchen to snack on things mindlessly later on into the evening. So you want this 3-hour buffer after you've eaten to allow insulin to come down. You want to make sure your evening meal is really nicely balanced, and you want to create a proper wind down routine and getting into bed around 10 o'clock. If you do that, it's going to really help to ensure that your sleep improves. And when sleep improves, weight loss becomes a lot easier. There was a study done where they took two groups of people. They were both fed the same calorie controlled diet. One group was allowed to sleep for 8 hours, the other group was only allowed to sleep for 4 hours. The group that slept for 8 hours lost 55% more weight than the group that slept for only 4 hours. And of the weight that the group that only slept for 4 hours lost, a lot more of it was lean tissue. It wasn't fat. They didn't burn fat in the same way as the group that had 8 hours of sleep a night. So sleep is absolutely critical as far as our weight management program is concerned, our weight management plan. And if you are doing all the right things, you're eating the right food, but you're finding that you're just not managing to lose the weight, look at your sleep and see what's going on with your sleep. Sleep is one of the modules in the Feel Fabulous Club. We have the Feel Fabulous method. It's a 3-module course that you can follow at your own pace, and you follow the modules for as long as you need to implement those changes. Helps to get simple habits in place, stacking on each other, just so that it doesn't feel overwhelming to make these changes to your well-being and ensure that you can manage your weight more effectively in midlife. So if you want to know more about it, the link is in the show notes below. If you've got any questions, stick them in the chat box below, and I'll look forward to speaking to you again soon. Good care. Bye-bye.